Seems to have sorted itself out now. It's good. Fine.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're good.
It was probably the Skype that all kind of adjusted the volume. But welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
My first question has to be, why on earth are you still doing in the office at 7:15?
This is still quite early, really. Yeah,
really?
It's only 7:15. I think when we were doing issue 500, some of the nights were well past midnight. So
really,
yeah.
And how exciting is it to be working on issue 500? And how many issues of those? I'm assuming you haven't been there for all 500 episodes. What of it starting probably before your birth? So.
No, well, I have been as a reader. I've been there for all 500 because one of my earliest memories has been getting the very first issue in 1979. So I was 3.5 years old, and I've been reading ever since. But I've only been actually on the magazine as working on it since number 330. And that's
still a huge amount of issues.
That's a lot of magazines, yeah.
Yeah, that was. I joined then as the assistant editor, and that was in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
And I was Clayton Hickman's assistant. He was the editor at the time. And then in 2007, after about 4.5 years of being his assistant, I took over as editor. So it's a good 9 years I've been editor.
So have you been involved in many other kind of magazines, or was it kind of the love of Doctor Who that came first, or the love of magazines?
I do love Doctor Who, of course, but I was the editor of another magazine before that, before I joined DWM. That was a magazine called TV Zone, and I edited that for a couple of years. And before that, I was working sort of in the company generally on various magazines. And before that, I was a lot younger. So I did basically when I finished from university, I was looking for work, and I did about 9 months working in an insurance office, and then an opportunity came up to work in publishing, so that's how I got into it.
So obviously, as part of doing these Doctor Who legacy shows, we've had a huge range of wonderful people come on the show. We've had composers, we've had actors, we've had all sorts. So excuse our naivety, but obviously we've got some very young viewers and some very older viewers. So what exactly does being the editor of the magazine imply?
Okay.
Like, do you write the articles, or you kind of like you gather the articles?
I write bits, but mostly, I mean, you'll see in any given issue, I write at least 300 words at the front, the letter from the editor. But usually, most of the actual articles are written by a team of writers that I have, and interviews and so on. I'm basically the person who is ultimately in charge, that coordinates everything that's going to go in. So it will either start as an idea that I have. How about an article on, for example, a recent one we had, all the times the Doctor's met immortal characters or something like that. I think in immortality, that's a theme that they've had a lot in Doctor Who recently.
So no one dies anymore.
Yeah, so Captain Jack or a Shilda, and there've been actually quite a few characters throughout Doctor Who's history. So I thought, well, I think that's a good idea for an article, how Doctor Who has treated this subject over the years. So I spoke to one of my writers saying, how about something along these lines? And he then developed it into a piece, which we ran in issue 499, I think. So there'll be a bit of dialogue back and forth to discuss that idea. Then he'll go and write a draft. Then I gave him some notes back and saying, I think it needs to be tweaked in these ways. So basically it's a collaborative thing, and then eventually, once we've got his version, I'll make some further tweaks. I'll give it to the designer, say kind of how I want it to look and all of that, and and eventually it gets to the version that you'll see in the printed magazine.
And how much do the BBC kind of say to you, we want you to do an article on this because we've got this coming up, and how much of it is kind of free reign to you and your team?
Not at all, really. I mean, that's why it's my job. I'm the person who knows what it should be. I mean, of course, I do speak to people at the BBC, and particularly I speak to Stephen Moffat because I like to particularly if we're doing something about something which hasn't been broadcast yet, I'll want some guidance from him about whether there are things we can say ahead of transmissions. That will particularly become an issue if it's previews of episodes and that kind of thing, because we don't want to spoil surprises, but sometimes there are things we can say. So for the most part, we're quite independent from the BBC, but we're trusted to get on with it and do a good magazine.
And is it kind of more? I'm not sure if the word is kind of interesting or like hectic. Like, is it better to kind of be writing the magazine when there's a series actually in production, or when it's actually on TV, or like now when it's kind of the off season? What's kind of like the the best point to be at?
Different challenges really at different times. I mean, actually, the last couple of months, probably since the start of the year, has been strange because it hasn't been on television and it hasn't been in production either. So usually we've got one or the other. But what we have had is issue 500, of course. So that's been an enormous challenge. So I'm quite glad in a way I haven't had to worry about TV episodes being on or sending people off to be on set while they're recording. I've just been able to concentrate on that. It does get more hectic when episodes are actually about to be on, because that's when we're really having to make sure that we've got all the new photographs we need. And of course, that can be quite a time-consuming process because they'll need to be approved by the people at the BBC and in some cases the actors and so on. So, I'll be saying I need them by this date, and inevitably they're not ready by that date. It has to, it gets pushed on to the absolute limit. But so that can get a little bit tight and a little bit stressful at times. But the rest of the time, of course, we are much more free to cover the whole of Doctor Who's history. Yeah. I want to focus on the ones that are on when we're actually in transmission time. But then, the other 9 months of the year, I like to have something for everyone. So if you're fans of the 1960s episodes, we'll have a bit of that. If you're fans of say, the Christopher Eccleston episodes, that's 10 years ago, we'll try and do that. So I'll try and...
10 years ago, that makes me so depressed when that becomes like classic era.
Yeah. Sort of... I never sort of really think of it as sort of two shows, like, the old show and the new show. I think of it as different eras, and I think the magazine embraces it in that way because, everything new becomes old, but it never stops being new stuff to discover about the older eras. We're always trying to find out new facts and find new photos that have never been printed before. So, and we know that everyone's got their own favourite bits of it. That people will like Tom Baker or they like William Hartnell. Whichever bit it is, we try and cater for everyone.
So the magazine, you said, started in 1979?
That's right, October the 11th, 1979, the very first issue hit the newsstands.
It's my birthday, how exciting.
Yeah.
And so does the 500th edition of the magazine celebrate the history of the magazine and kind of look back at like...
Yeah. Yes, it does to an extent. I think when you have a big... celebratory number like that, it's an opportunity to look back and kind of give yourselves a pat on the back. We got a world record after all, and it's nice to wallow in nostalgia to an extent. That's why. With the front cover, for example, I wanted, I've had this idea in the back of my mind for a while that we could get the current Doctor, in this case it's Peter Capaldi, but I had this idea, I think, it was still David Tennant, that we could get the current Doctor to sort of recreate the pose from the very first issue, and that would be nostalgic and a nice thing for readers who actually remember that first issue. But I think even if you weren't around in those days, you can see what we've done, and it's quite fun, isn't it? Because Doctor Who always plays with that time traveller aspect and pays tribute to its past. So I thought that was fun. And the rest of the magazine, we've got a special supplement that comes with it that shows all the different covers and has interviews with some of the previous editors and how it's changed and developed over time. But we've also got, a big chat with Stephen Moffat about looking forward into the future. So I think you can celebrate the past as well as looking ahead as well.
We've got a huge range of questions from the audience here, if you wouldn't mind me putting them to you. Aslan's Compass asks, have you seen changing in publishing in regards to the internet since you started?
Yeah, we have really. I mean, I was reminded the other day that when I first came onto the magazine in 2003, there was no YouTube. It certainly wasn't on Facebook and things like that. So, I mean, the whole way that everything's much more instant now has changed things. I mean, of course, we do have a digital edition, so you can get it on your iPad or tablet. But the vast majority of people still read the actual physical paper copy, and that
distribution is still paper.
Still very much weighted, and that's true of the whole magazine industry. I mean, some magazines have more, more in that direction than others. But for the most part, even though it's declining in print, that's still the majority. Mm-hmm. And I think, because if you want to look at sort of a forum or something like that, that is a different experience to what a magazine can give you. We can go into much more depth in a magazine than you would want to read sort of on a website article. I think, we can do an interview that's 6,000 or 7,000 words long, and you can, you read it and browse it in a different way, I think. So, I mean, one area where it's difficult to compete, so we don't really try that much, is sort of in being newsworthy, because the second our issue is published, even if we have something which hasn't been reported elsewhere, it's going to make its way onto the internet before 99% of the readership have even had a chance to see it in their issue. Yeah. So, obviously the internet can update every second, every day. We can update once every 4 weeks. But I do think, that's not the area where we're strongest. The area where we're strongest is to give the level of detail and the photography and the behind the scenes features and interviews which you won't get anywhere else.
Thank you, and thank you for your question, Aslan's Compass. If I can bring Susan back in, how did the collaboration between you two, between Doctor Who Legacy and Doctor Who Magazine, kind of come about?
Well, it was really something that Peter, who everyone on Twitch knows, Peter Hickman at the BBC, helped make happen. He's obviously heavily involved in the game and the magazine, and a big fan of both, and has always wanted to see us collaborate on something.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
I know you've mentioned it before on the stream, but just for the new viewers here, like what exactly is the Legacy Magazine collaboration? It's Frobisher, isn't it?
It's 3 characters, actually: Frobisher, Shade, and Absalom Doc. We added all 3 of them. And there's a code in the 500th issue, as if you needed another reason to pick it up, to unlock the characters. And it's also the first time we've had an interview that features Pest, who has drawn every single character in the game, as well as Jack Yee, our producer in Taiwan, and Chris Hulsbeck, the composer who did all the original music for the game.
And is this the start of a beautiful friendship, as Casablanca would say? Is this something you think might happen again in the future?
Tom, we haven't talked about it yet. I would certainly love to do more stuff with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, the lovely thing about the Legacy game is you can keep on adding characters to it. And I think there are lots of characters from Doctor Who Magazine's history, because, as we've been saying, they've been around for almost 40 years. So I love the fact that we have the comic strip in the magazine, which has been there ever since issue 1, and that's kind of got its own history and continuity with lots of characters which have popped up and come. In fact, in the 500th issue, you'll see some of the old characters from over the years that come back into the strip. So it would be really good fun to sort of allow Doctor Who Legacy to cross over into some of that, I think.
Definitely. I think one of the things we mentioned in the article, and just generally we love to talk about the fact that, we've had the privilege of becoming a bit of a sort of app hub for the extended universe of Doctor Who. We started with the 50 years of the show, but then, we've been fortunate enough to get involved with the guys at Titan, and add Titan Comics characters. And with Nick Briggs, we brought Charlie Pollard in. And
the audios, yeah.
And
I love how the Doctor Who universe has kind of got all these tentacles, hasn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Just TV stuff.
Exactly. And then, we have, we've worked with George Mann to bring the Engines of War character Cinder into the game. And George has actually just written the next installment of Bigger on the Inside, our sort of pixelated 8-bit adventure. He's actually authored with Lee the second chapter of that, which is just brilliant, and we're really excited about. And what's cool about George even is he plays the game. So when we've asked him to write stuff, you might think that he would have focused on, what he knows best, with the War Doctor and the stuff he's done with the 8th Doctor with Titan, but instead he's all over the place, just like the game. Like, I like to laugh sometimes, like if you actually had a comic that showed what's happening in Legacy, you'd have like 300 characters jammed into the TARDIS at once, all talking over top of each other. And he's managed to embrace that in Bigger on the Inside. And he's got, Jack Harkness talking alongside, Katie Manning, and, it's like all these characters all mashed up together, and he totally got it, which is why I think it worked so well, for him to be writing that next chapter for us. So yeah, it's been really fun meshing this all together.
It is a wonderful world of Doctor Who, and both the magazine and the Legacy and the comics seem to have brought them all together, with the big finish, like you said. Right, we're going to pop to commercial. When we come back, I shall be putting more of your questions to Tom. We've got an amazing Doctor Who magazine subscription giveaway, so don't you dare go anywhere, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes. live, if that's all right.
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our special Doctor Who legacy show with Tom Spilsbury, the editor of Doctor Who magazine, who is here ready to answer your questions. And we're just going to open our Addy Gold giveaway now. This is probably one of the biggest giveaways we have done. This is for a subscription to Doctor Who magazine, and this can be postal or it can be digital. It is entirely your choice. Wherever you are in the world, it can be mailed to you, or you can get a digital subscription. So I'm going to open the raffle now. The usual rules apply. You gain Addy Gold by watching the show. It doesn't have to be this show. It can be any of my particular shows. And then you buy raffle tickets by using ! raffle ticket and then the number of tickets you want to buy. And obviously, the more tickets you buy, the more chance that the winner will be you. And if you are an Addy patron or an Addy Posse member, then you get free extra entries. And if you've got any questions about that, just ask in the channel and all the lovely mods will answer your questions. So off you guys go with that. We'll probably close the giveaway in about 10 minutes. All right. So questions. Billy Bow 50 if I welcome Tom and Susan back to the show. Billy Bow 50 says, which actor or actress do you think has done the most for the magazine in its history?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I mean, two very dear friends to the magazine, who neither of whom are with us anymore, were Nick Courtney and Liz Sladen, who were Nick Courtney played the Brigadier, of course, and Liz Sladen was Sarah Jane, and they were both tremendous friends to the magazine and dearly loved. I remember, because of course Liz Sladen was in the Sarah Jane Adventures for those series for a fair few years, we wouldn't automatically kind of get the same kind of access because it wasn't technically Doctor Who. But she was always say, anything I can do to promote, if we really want the coverage. So if we can do interviews, if we can do this, and so she was just amazing, really. And I mean, to be honest, everyone who we kind of deal with is fantastic. Tom Baker has always been amazing. We've done some fantastic interviews with him over the years, but then he always sort of says how kind we've been to him. So I think there's a very special community there, with particularly because of the years it was off TV before it came back in 2005. There was a really sort of strong kind of bond between the actors and the magazine.
When did you take over in terms of years? Were you there in the wilderness years?
Yeah, in the very tail end of that. I think I'd been there about 6 months before they announced it was going to come back.
That must have been an amazing feeling.
Yeah, that's a good timing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of just felt like, that I've timed that really well.
Did you ever feel like how long can we keep this magazine going with a show that's no longer being made?
Kind of. I mean, obviously, when I started, the magazine had already been running for a long time without a TV show there. Yeah. So it kind of felt
pretty unique, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought, I'll come in and that'll be fun for a while. I mean, there wasn't any sort of suggestion that it was going to disappear anytime soon because it had already proved itself in a way. But at the same time, we did sort of wonder if eventually, it's the sands of time would run out on it, because how long can you go without sort of something new to write about? Yes, there was the audios and books and things, but it was very difficult to get new readers when there wasn't a TV show on. So I wonder if it would still have reached issue 500 by now if it hadn't come back. It certainly couldn't be as massive as it is now. But I think things worked out well for the best.
Is the magazine kind of aimed at, because I've got some old classic ones from way back, but in terms of the kind of the viewership, how much is it kind of aimed at children or adults or everyone, or what's the aim?
Originally, it was aimed very much at children. I mean, I was 3 years old when I got that first issue, but I think it's changed partly because the show disappeared. So, the readership was getting older as time went on. And then, of course, when the TV series came back, yes, we got a new group of readers coming in who were younger. But also, of course, there was Doctor Who Adventures, which was catering for a younger audience then. So I think some of them have graduated onto us as, because that was 10 years ago. So anyone who was 7 or 8 then is now 17 or 18. So there is that kind of natural progression as kids that watch it at school then get older, and if they really get into it, then they kind of become the more hardcore fans that we kind of cater for. But so we want as many readers as possible, but at the same time, we know we're quite specialist in a way. We kind of we're the hard stuff, if you like, if you kind of think of us that way, because we're going to get into the real nitty gritty of the detail and so on.
For those of you that have just joined the channel, we are currently speaking to Tom Spilsbury, who is the editor of Doctor Who magazine, and we are in the middle of a giveaway for a subscription to the magazine using the normal AdiGold rules. Please ask the mods if you're not sure exactly what they are. We will be doing that draw in about just under 10 minutes now. We've got quite a few questions about kind of like your favourites, Tom, but they're quite a nice one. So feel free to answer any of these that kind of appeal. Crystal Sky says, "Tell us a fun fact that you learned while working on the magazine about Doctor Who." And Dabflow asks, "What was the biggest / funniest mistake or fault which has ever kind of ended up in the magazine?" And anything like those take your fancy?
Well, I can certainly remember a few mistakes we've made. That comes to mind really easily. I was also quite pleased that we hadn't had a mistake on the cover until a few years ago when we did a multiple cover, where we had the same issue but different covers for it. And there was a typo on that where the word "produced" I put an extra U in it. And of course that meant it was on all three versions of the cover. I think it was issue 451, wasn't it? 451. So that was annoying.
Is your knowledge that encyclopedic that you could actually tell me which article was which number?
Yeah, you don't forget the mistakes. I think there was one issue, although I can't remember specifically when it was, where I'd left a pull quote from a previous issue, because of course you tend to use the last issue's files as a kind of template and then put in the new text and change everything round. But I'd accidentally left in something from the previous issues. That's always annoying.
It helps people catch up with what they've missed. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, of course there are mistakes because, in the end, if it comes out every month or every four weeks, that's actually only 20 days in the office. That's 7 hours per day. You start working out, you think it's not very much for the number of pages we do. I think I worked out a while back that, from start to finish, I think it's about 12 minutes on every page. You start thinking that's not very long, really. It's amazing. But something I've learned though, I don't know.
A fact about the show or an unusual factoid that makes you?
I had no idea. When we were doing the 500th issue, and we were doing a piece on the Day of the Doctor, and there's a character at the start of it who tells Clara that there's a message from her doctor. Do you remember that bit? She's at the school and she says there's a message from your doctor. And the guy who comes in is apparently called Tom, who's apparently named after me. I found that out.
Nice of them to tell you.
2.5 years after the episode had been on, Stephen Moffat had named him after me. So he was to in this issue. So that was a nice surprise. He doesn't get a name on screen. He's only in the end credits. It says Tom, but that's
that's you. That's you.
I'm immortalised in the 50th anniversary. Yeah.
Well, tell us more about this 500th issue. So obviously we know that you've got this wonderful Doctor Who Legacy, Doctor Who Legacy and Doctor Who Magazine crossover with Frobisher and other characters as well. But what else is in the issue?
Well, we've got a couple of pieces with Peter Capaldi. Three pieces in a way. He wrote a nice letter for us at the start of the issue, and he did this photo shoot where we sort of interviewed him about his memories of the magazine and being part of that. And then the third thing we did with him, which I think is rather fun, is William Hartnell was interviewed 50 years ago by a young schoolgirl who sent him a letter to him, and William Hartnell answered the question. So we've asked the same questions 50 years on to Peter Capaldi, because he's kind of exactly the same age as Hartnell was at that time, and he's done the same amount of Doctor Who. So that's a really sweet thing to have done. Yeah, I think it's sort of 58, which is what the age Hartnell was at that time. So
the age he was when he started, or the age he was when
the age he was sort of about a couple of years in, I think, if it works out right. But I think that was really sweet because, it's this kind of a nice connection between the earliest Doctor and the current Doctor there. So that was fun. As I briefly mentioned before, huge interview with Stephen Moffat, where he really goes into sort of the detail about casting Pearl Mackie as the new companion and what might be coming up in the next series. Lots of discussion about that. We've got the first part, it's quite a brief bit in 500, but it will continue into the next one, of an interview with Tom Baker. He's saying that my last ever interview, I think he's being a little melodramatic, but as he points out, he says I'm 82 now. I
think he'd say it far deeper than that. I'm 82 now.
Yeah, well, he did, but it's I think he doesn't mean it to sort of sound upsetting, but I think he's being realistic that he doesn't know. When you're at that age, how long you might be around for, and he wants to do a really big, sort of almost definitive interview with us. So that's the bulk of that is going to come up in issue 501, but it sort of starts in this one, and I think it should be a fascinating read.
When you interview most of these people, I'm sure it changes from interview to interview, but how much of them do they visit you, or do you visit them, or are they done on the phone, or how much?
This particular one, my writer Ben Cook went to Tom's house to do it, and I think you always get a better interview when you can do it face to face. They sometimes done on the phone because it's just that might be more convenient. But I think if possible, I mean, most of my interviews, I don't do that many, but particularly if I'm meeting Stephen or something, I think it's always best to do it over dinner with a drink. It's that you get the best stuff then.
How do you feel about Stephen's decision to leave? Do you think that will affect the magazine? Do you think it will affect the show? What are your kind of thoughts?
Well, it's always constantly evolving, isn't it? It'll affect things in ways which is difficult to tell at this point. I mean, the show will certainly change because Chris Chibnall, I'm sure, will have his own views about how it will be done. As far as the magazine's concerned, I hope, I know Chris reads the magazine and is, he's a Doctor Who fan, of course, so I'm hopeful that we'll just have a new relationship with him, and he'll see that we want to be supportive of the show, that we're kind of independent from it, but still it's a tricky line to walk in a way, because we want to be the official magazine, but we're also kind of a magazine that has its own voice and is kind of tries to reflect what fans think about it and so on.
So do you ever criticise an episode, or do you have to do it carefully?
I think and given that Stephen's a mate of mine, he never has got upset about this. I mean, privately he might feel, it's a shame they didn't like that one, but I mean, some of the recent episodes have had quite a lot of criticism. I think in the previous series, in the Forest of the Night, and
I ranted. That was just the one I was thinking of. I ranted about that one so much.
I mean, I never like to really sort of go into too much detail about my own personal opinion, because I mean, who cares about that? That's just one. I'm just one person. But our reviewer will have his opinion, and then the readers will react to that. And sometimes they'll say, "I disagreed with your reviewer." I think that's good. I think you need to have that. We certainly had. We were quite down on some of the later Matt Smith episodes. I remember Rings of Akaten got quite a pummeling, and Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS had a sort of bit. I remember it takes the stupidest plot twist in the whole of Doctor Who, when the revelation that he's been an android all along. And I think to have the freedom to be able to say that, the readers might disagree, in which case they might write in and say, well, I really liked it. But I think you have to have that freedom to do that, even though, of course, we broadly speaking, we're going in with a positive outlook, because I think that's how most fans of the show do. They want to enjoy it.
They're probably reading the magazine because they like it, so they want to have that positive vibe coming back. But it's like you said, it's nice that you have your own voice and you don't just feel like you're kind of puppeting a line.
Our own ones we like and ones we don't like so much. But I mean, I think the majority of fans, there's only a minority that sort of go into hating it every week, and that's not real, and that's not something which we would want to do, because why are you a fan of something if that's how you feel? But of course there will be things which we can point out the weaknesses, and I think it's important never to be personal about it, because everyone making the show is trying their hardest to make something that they hope people will like. Same as us on the magazine, we hope people will like it. I don't want to upset anyone in that regard, but it's always about the work itself, and rather than any individual personally. I think that's important.
I do my my small little YouTube channel. I do my own little Doctor Who reviews kind of video, and now you've said that no one wants to hear your opinion. I was feeling slightly guilty that I talk about my opinion about it for half an hour in a row. But I think it's always interesting to kind of think about. Often, even the episodes that I don't like have at least one or two really good ideas in them. Do you know what I mean? And you kind of think
Exactly,
it must have looked great on paper, but it hasn't quite worked in translation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, the only reason I said that about me personally is, of course, because I'm the editor of the magazine. I don't want to be sort of saying that my personal opinions are kind of the voice of the magazine. I think our reviewer has a slightly different job because that's his position is to write something interesting about the episodes you've just seen. But of course, I like to be a bit more guarded about my own personal preferences because I'm there to sort of present all of it as
the presentable face of the magazine.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's it. You know, and I wouldn't want people to think, oh, well, he obviously doesn't like the John Pertwee years or something, so that's why he's not giving it coverage or something. Because that's not true anyway. But as an example, do you know what I mean? You have to be. You have to have a certain distance from it from that perspective.
And also, you don't want to be negative about something and then phone someone up and say, "Hi, can I have an interview?" Because the answer will probably be
yeah. Well, I mean, certainly on a personal basis, and of course, and again, I remember Neil Cross, who wrote the episode Rings of Akaten, and he'd also written Hyde. And I think when we interviewed him, he particularly ruefully noted in his interview, he's saying, well, some people liked it and some people hated it. I know, DWM completely hated Akaten, but hey, he still did the interview with us. So I think he recognised that hey, you can't please everybody. But it was nice of him not to sort of hold it against us when we said, can we do an interview?
Absolutely not. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening, Tom. We really, really appreciate having you here.
Yes, thank you very much.
Fascinating hearing all of your answers. And if people in the chat could rain their thanks towards Tom, we'd very much appreciate it. We've got a rapt audience here listening to your every word. And so we've got a few people here who are desperate to get their 500th edition stateside. Have they been posted now? Or I'm assuming
well, if they're postal subscribers, they should have been posted already. If they tend to pick it up in the shops, it tends to take a bit longer to reach there. Usually they're about a month behind, so issue 499 will be appearing in the shops now, and it'll be a bit later. And if they're digital subscribers, of course, it should be just as instant wherever you are. So.
Well, let us do our draw. So I will close the raffle then. We have... we have 128,908.
Wow, I think
tickets.
that's a record, isn't it?
That might well be a new ticket. So some people have obviously gone in very, 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 very big indeed. Angelina's gone in 10,000 tickets. Henwar's gone in 2,000 tickets.
You're flattered, Tom. That's a big entry. There's still a bunch more questions here. I've tried to kind of summarize the kind of most interesting ones. Of course, there's the nuts questions. Can we hear your a cappella version of the Doctor Who theme tune? I won't ask you that one. What? Loads of stuff about
wants to hear that.
Has no one asked him to speak like a Jadoon? I thought we did that to everybody.
That's true. We do have people who do Jadoon impression.
False soul. Okay.
That was good.
We had Nick Briggs do that. It was great.
Right. Let us start the tombola. Good luck, everybody. Sadly, there can be only one winner, but a massive congratulations and happy reading to... And I shall press the pick winner button. Oh, my PC is actually slowing down with the size of this file. Good luck, and tonight's winner is... Dabflow! Congratulations, Dabflow. You now have a subscription to the Doctor Who magazine. Well done. Dabflow put in... 42, 42, 42. He put in over 8,000. Thank you for the Hitchhiker's reference there as well. Which is great. Anyway, thank you so much, Tom. We will pass Dabflow's details on to you shortly.
Yes, let us know whether that's postal or digital. We'll sort it out.
Yes, we will do. Right, we're going to play some fibbage. Susan, is there anything else you want to talk about with Doctor Who Legacy before we move on to Superstar?
Just the big things are the fact that the new client update went live today. So if you're playing on mobile, Facebook, it's automatic. Playing mobile, please grab the new client update. I believe it's tomorrow. It's going to become mandatory to play. Yep. And the patch, since you were confused, Addy, the patch with the daily unit missions goes live tomorrow, I'm told. And so that will be these...
I was just eager.
Yeah. Yes, I know. I'm eager too. It's going to be exciting. So these, as we discussed, these are missions that are going to happen on a daily basis, which will take you to levels where the drop rate will be higher than usual, and you can collect new past and future fragments. Next week we have Nicola Bryant coming on to Twitch.
Oh, wow.
So we hope everyone will come back next week for that, which will be really exciting.
How many tips of questions to ask Nicola Bryant?
Oh, you put me on the spot there.
I'm just asking the expert. You've done the interviews. You've been there for the years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, I'm trying to think of something that she hasn't been asked before. That's the thing.
that is all true. How did we do tonight? Did we do a good interview?
Oh yeah, I mean, actually, I did say some things I haven't said in other interviews, so that's always good.
Good.
We did good. Hear that, Susan? We did good.
Did, yeah. So any questions for Nicola, let us know. We are probably in the next week or two after that, we're going to have George Mann back on, as well as the Pixel Who guys, to talk about the next installment of Bigger on the Inside. So loads and loads and loads of cool stuff happening.
Fantastic. Right, we'll be back in 5 minutes with some fibbage. If you haven't, we haven't got time to show the Gwen Cooper artwork, but if you are a subscriber to the Doctor Who Doctor Who Legacy newsletter, then you can go and check out that, and we'll definitely show you that next week if you haven't seen it. Right,
and I'm going to get Lanyon on to play fibbage with me.
Great. Okay, we'll be back in 5. Thank you very much.